Hello, Hokies. It's been a little bit, but it's time for our exclusive sit-down conversation with Justin Fuente. I get the exclusives because we're buddies, of course. We get the masks, despite the fact that we're 6 feet apart, so we're going to take those off and talk about all things Hokies, the off-season, and Fuente family. First and foremost, man, it's good to see you. In COVID world, 6 weeks or so since the last time I saw you. Feels about like 10 years.
I know. It's just a little odd still. I mean, for some reason in our minds, I think when we went away for break, we felt like when we came back, things would be back to normal. And I'm still optimistic that we'll get back to normal, but we're certainly not there yet. So it's still just kind of almost surreal.
At the same time, your football program beats Virginia. It's a joyous night. We all get together in a socially conscious way, sometimes virtually that night, but there just seemed to be a collective sigh of relief, not just for bringing the cup back here, of course, but just for having gone through all that was the gauntlet. How have you been able to decompress over the holidays, if you were able to, and get back refreshed and recharged?
Well, certainly. I think, I don't know that I could do justice, or anybody really could do justice of what our kids went through in terms of trying to pull off that season and play all 11 games and play 9 games straight and all those things we've talked about a million times. Just, really proud of the way they held on to the rope and finished the season off with a big time victory. So we just basically, when the kids made the decision on postseason, we put things down and just tried to escape a little bit and reintroduce ourselves to our families and spend a little time together and kind of step away from it and get recharged for the spring.
And decided to take Christmas shopping into your own hands with some sweet new Western wear.
Yeah, if I have one guilty pleasure, it's, I will partake in a pair of boots occasionally, but I try to make it easy on Jen. I just called her one day and said, don't buy me anything for Christmas. I got it all taken care of.
All right, well, like I mentioned, things going on, transfer portal, giveth, transfer portal taketh away. In some cases, you guys had some players depart. I don't think really any of those were all that surprising, but you've also brought in tremendous talent to this roster. What are you excited about in terms of the veteran presence that you've added on both sides of the ball?
Well, we have been the benefactor of this new system, and I don't think there's ever been a better example of that than last year. And with some of the people that we brought in, some of them are still with us, and we're still kind of looking in that market for another guy or two. We don't have very much room left, but I do like we've got some experience in the secondary and on the defensive line that we brought in from. We have a long history with Jordan Williams, and he comes to us from Clemson. He's from the 757, and just really excited to have him here working in our offseason. Tay Daly, has fit right in as a kind of an older veteran guy. Again, we've got so many young secondary players, particularly at safety, that it's nice to have Tay in there, to kind of help out a little bit. And then, we found ourselves a little thin at quarterback, and really relied on some of our connections in terms of evaluating the person and the work ethic to reach all the way down to Texas A&M and I think really help our football program there too.
It's kind of flown under the radar, and I'm not sure why. You played the season without Jaden Payoute, who was going to be a huge part of what you wanted to do, and you kind of had to adjust. Not kind of, you did have to adjust all season long what you wanted to do. I know it's a long time between now and September, but at the moment you stack up with Trey, Tavion, James, Nick, Drake, and you also now, of course, like you mentioned, add Changa and bring in some of those other pieces. You've got weaponry on the offensive side.
Well, I hope so. I feel like we're finally getting to where we have some depth there. We've got some young players that hopefully we won't have to press into action. This is what happens sometimes. You see it across the country. You have a young player that's good but not quite ready, and he is pressed into immediate action as opposed to being given the time to develop. And I hope that we'll be able to kind of let those guys marinate and develop a little bit more, the younger players, and play with this older group of skill players. And Jaden was making huge strides, and there's not a better kid in our program in terms of just attitude and effort and work ethic, but he had never played wide out, and he was making huge strides in that direction when he got hurt. And I'm anxious to get him back out there this spring and see if we can continue that development, because I believe he's got a chance to really help this program.
Let's talk about quarterback. I can't get you out of here without doing that. And, speaking of the transfer portal, not a lot of people noticed, I don't think, when Braxton Burmeister transferred into the program now 3 years ago. Incredibly, it's been that long. And you've had so much movement in that quarterback position since then. And if it's not for a Tyrell Smith and his girth, we probably would have seen a lot more of Braxton last year. You don't generally do this going into camp, and we're nowhere close to camp. But at the moment, I imagine Braxton QB1, and how do you see the rest of the room shaping up?
Well, I don't know how it's all going to shape up. I'm anxious to get a chance to see it. Obviously, if we played tomorrow, Braxton would go out there and be the starter. I've been really pleased with him. I was pleased with him throughout the season, and really liked the way he played. Started the first 2 games. We were 2-0. Didn't have a great first half in our 3rd game, but some of it was not all his fault. And then suffered, a really kind of freak injury in practice that really diminished his opportunity to contribute during the middle of the season. But was called on at the end in the Virginia game. Went out and played really well. I just won't forget the second drive, all the 3rd down conversions he made to keep that drive going for us to eventually score a touchdown and take a lead that we wouldn't give up. So I'm excited about the next level of him. He is a skilled passer. He's not a guy with a huge arm, but he is a guy with anticipation and ability to throw touch balls and just over people and in front of other defenders that I think is really darn near impossible to teach. That's kind of innate, and I think he has that talent.
Speaking of offensive line, much made of Doug moving on, Brian moving on, and of course we're all excited about Christian Darrisaw, going to be a first-round draft pick. But you told me last year, you said, look out for Luke Tenuta, because this is a guy that has maybe more upside than anybody on our offensive line. So as you look at this group, Lasitas is coming back, Brock is coming back, you bring in Johnny, who's an all-Big Ten performer at Maryland just up the road. Do you just slide Luke over to the left and at the moment plug in Silas on the right and know that you have a pretty capable group?
Well, I think that's probably where we'll start, moving Luke to left tackle. I think, first of all, I would backtrack and say I'm really proud of the way that our guys that explored the NFL went about the process. James Mitchell, Lasitas Smith, Brock Hoffman, gaining information, listening to people that actually know. That's not me. Listen to people that actually know, that are in the NFL, that can give them real life evaluations. Sometimes those evaluations are not fun to hear. Sometimes they're not very nice, But they listened to that, made decisions to all come back. I think they're going to reap the benefits of that. We will move Luke over onto the left side. We won't have Johnny here for the spring, so we've got a couple young guys in the offensive line that redshirted last year. I guess everybody redshirted or nobody redshirted, however all that works. But the guys that didn't play last year.
You get a car.
Yeah, I don't know how it all counts. But, Parker Clements and Caden Moore that I think I'm really excited about. I haven't watched them, haven't been the offensive scout team coach for the defense during a good portion of the year, working with those guys and seeing what they could do. I thought they're really, really talented and have a chance to get in there and compete for playing time as well.